All right. Well, in the 2 minutes before we kick off the session, I will start running through some bios for everybody. So in the room right now, we have Michael Nye, who is a content creator and a digital marketing specialist who runs a podcast and marketing agency in the crypto space. Michael, what's the name of your podcast again?
Evolvement. Evolvement. You can check it out at evolvement.io.
Sweet. Oh, I forgot myself. Well, I'll get to myself last. So we also have Jesse Berger.
Hey.
Did I get your last name right? Is it Berger?
No, but it's all right. It's fine. Everybody fucks it up, so it's okay.
Is it Berger?
Well, it's Dutch, so you probably can't pronounce it, but I'll give you the shot. It's Berger.
Berger. Okay.
Close enough.
So he's coming to us from Utrecht and grew up with a deep passion for finding new and exciting ways to improve the daily lives of people. And that's why he founded Index Monkey, which provides further accessibility for blockchain technology. And so anybody can be part of the decentralized future. We also have Barry Herbst, is from NYC and works with the Elliot Group, the foremost retained executive search firm specializing in placing senior talent for public and private companies in the hospitality, food and beverage, retail and manufacturing industry, as well as equity groups and family offices. And lastly, we have Serge Ravitch, who is a former lawyer, professional poker player, project manager turned angel investor. Serge has been skeptical on crypto since 2011, but it didn't stop him from making big bets during 2017. He currently lives in Puerto Rico. And lastly, I am Samuel McCulloch. I currently work for Adara, which is a exchange based out of Switzerland. And I am here in Moscow quite late at the moment. So welcome, everybody. This is going to be the first panel on the bear market of 2018, which I know has been a huge topic for pretty much everybody since the beginning of the year. We've all watched our crypto portfolios, the prices of those cryptos drop slowly and sometimes quickly and sometimes not at all, like right now. So I am going to start this off by just kind of posing one thing. That's in the past year, the price of all crypto assets has fallen dramatically since their height at the end of 2017. Many investors are now sitting underwater with their holdings trending towards, well, close to zero day by day. So as the use case for blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies has yet to be formalized into any major utility or enterprise other than Bitcoin and debatably Ethereum, my question for you, the panel, is, was 2017 a flash in the pan? Or is there room for growth? Who would like to start? Barry, do you want to start?
Happy to. I would say that thank you, Samuel, and great to speak with everyone. I would say the room for growth is really exponential. We saw there was an article that came out probably 3-4 days ago about Coinstar with the ATM machines, that you can now buy Bitcoin in 20,000 ATM machines across the Coinstar network, which is a huge development. I think that one snag in that is KYC and AML. This is a very, very interesting world that we're seeing more people really become slowly accepting of, and we can only go up from here. I really don't think we can go much lower personally. We only need more adoption. And it's these small examples that are really creating a huge new inroads to that adoption and acceptance.
Thank you.
It's all right to jump in, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, yeah. So I think it kind of depends on your vision of the future and how blockchain fits in, because in the end, I think personally that blockchain is a good solution, but only if you mostly care about data ownership and security. It's not the best solution if you care about user experience or fast transactions for that case. For instance, PayPal is not for everybody, just as Bitcoin isn't for everybody. So I think that kind of depends on how relevant it becomes in the future to own your own data, and how security becomes more relevant in the future, especially about data specifically, to be honest.
Michael or Serge, you want to provide your comments?
Okay, I'll take a look. I think it's interesting that talk has been focused on adoption, as in the ability of a user to buy Bitcoin. The stats I've seen say something between 5 and 10% of any given large market have crypto. That's not a lot, but it's not just early adopters anymore. It's not just tech industry types anymore. That's a significant number. At the same time, we've seen the price fall 80-something%. So to me, adoption is not how many people can we get to buy coins and then hold them and then forget your private key over the next few years. To me, adoption is how do we make this useful for something? And that's an issue for everyone in the industry. I see a lot of projects struggling with it. I see a couple of promising answers, but I don't know that everyone is asking the right questions yet.
Great. Michael, do you want to tackle the question?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the thing we really need to look at here is whether like we're looking at price in terms of is 2017 a glimpse of something, or will we see it again, or are we looking at development? Because like 2017 price action may have been extremely volatile and arguably positive or negative to the whole ecosystem. But the fact of the matter is it brought a lot of attention. It brought a lot of eyeballs onto the cryptocurrency space, which in turn brought a lot of smart people in 2018 and into 2019 into the space to create more things, to utilize blockchain technology as a potential tool for the development of our future in the financial industry, in multiple different industries. So when you ask like whether it's just a glimpse in like a glimpse in time, like a little blip, or whether or not we'll see it again, who knows? If we're talking about price action, like it all just depends upon like what you believe with your position on Bitcoin and what you believe in terms of pricing. But in terms of development, I personally believe that we're going to see a lot heavier development. It brought a lot of money into the industry, and because of that, we're going to see a lot of progression.
I guess the distinction that I'd like to make in the question, just revising a little bit, is that will the next run be captured within equity markets as you see enterprises and other commercial entities and other businesses start to add in blockchain technology and then get the benefits from that? Or will we see another run up in cryptocurrencies? Or will it be both? Because it's
probably both to a degree, but probably like I would make the assumption, and obviously anyone who answers this question is just guessing. No one really knows. You can't tell the future. No one can. But like my assumption would be we would have both. We'll definitely be seeing it in the current markets with people like Oracle or IBM and things like these major companies that are already established in implementing blockchain technology. And I think there is room for cryptocurrency. I don't think we're going to see it at the same degree personally. The whole ICO hype phase, for example, brought a lot of money into the industry and created a lot of struggle and a lot of problems because hell, I could write a white paper and put it on a website that looked really pretty with a good UI and raise $30 million in 5 minutes. I don't think we're ever going to see that again. But I do think that cryptocurrency will be relevant, probably without a lot of the current players in the market after this bear market.
All right. So I guess, does anybody else have any more comments on that, or we can, okay, we'll just move on. So I guess I'd like to hear from all of you some of the lessons learned that you've taken from 2018 and through this bear market, or at least maybe even through from 2017 as well too. What has changed in your own perspective about either investing into the space or dealing with companies, or even understanding of what is going to be provided by blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies? Serge, do you want to start?
In my case, I went in with what I thought were an open set of eyes. I thought that most projects would either be scams or would fail over the course of the next several years. And I thought that we would, even in 2017, I thought this would start in 2018. I didn't anticipate that something like 80% of ICOs would never deliver anything. even for me, that was a little bit, that was a step too far. I think we're all much more selective in the space than we used to be. And I do think that that's going to continue going forward. It's also very interesting how exactly correlated the market has been and will continue to be until individual companies can break out into projects with utility and projects without. I think that's going to be an ongoing story over the next couple of years.
Jesse, what about yourself? What are some of the lessons learned that you've taken from?
I think that the biggest lesson from 2017 has been that the hype was probably the worst thing that could have happened, to be honest. Too many people that send you a message, hey, should I buy or should I invest? Even though I think that everybody got distracted. It's not only about investing, even though most of the talk has been about investing and only investing, but not the use cases or the developments in the space. So I really hope that changes over in the next year. That's the thing I'm looking forward to the most, to be honest.
Yeah, I think
to even touch on that real quick, like, I think we also have to recognize that, like, investing is the main use case right now. Like, yeah, it just is. Like, and I know that we all want this to be utilized for other things, and I really do believe it will be in the next 3-5 years or whatever. But we also have to look and we have to say, like, while there were a lot of negatives that happened because of the big hype in 2017, I agree with you. Like, there were also a lot of positives that came out of it, and the use case right now is investing. It is trading. It is at least a large percentage of the people utilizing cryptocurrency is for the use case of trading and investing. And that's just my perspective.
Yeah, no, I'm not against the investing part of it. It's more about the reasons behind the investing.
True.
I really like that it is accessible to anyone, anywhere, regardless of the amount that you invest, which isn't the case if you buy stocks or ETFs or that, etc. With smaller amounts, it's very difficult to do it. At least in Europe, it is. For a transaction, you pay about $15, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you do a deposit each month, that stacks up each year. Here, you can do it for less than $1 if you want to, each transaction. So the accessibility and not excluding people from being able to invest, I like it very much. So I do think investing is good, but it shouldn't be for the reasons that you think that it goes up in value just because it went up in value last year, but more about how it aligns with your opinion about the future more, or what matters for you.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
I have real issues with investing for the sake of investing, which is almost where things are at right now. And most people investing in alts, and to generously give them that title, will say they're investing to make more Bitcoin. Most people investing in more Bitcoin will eventually admit that they're doing it so that either the price goes up or it replaces fiat or some other thing that frankly is not going to happen while any of us are still alive. I really think that use cases are a discussion that they need to focus on a practical level. If we're talking about investing in 2020 in the same mindset that we're talking in 2019 and we're talking in 2018, then I think this is going to fail. There needs to be a reason that money enters this ecosystem aside from making more of itself or participating in this zero-sum contest. There are very, very few people that will be net positive coming out of a contest like that, frankly.
I agree with you as well too, Serge. I think there's one of the things that all of this money coming into the ecosystem does is that, even though you may have billions of dollars or raised hundreds of millions of dollars, you cannot deploy it that quickly. You can only hire so many programmers. You can only hire so many people to go out and build your business and build out the use case. But it may take a year or 2 years or even 5 years before you guys realize the full potential of what a lot of these companies were raising in the ICO boom want to and are planning to do. Well, hopefully still planning to do.
For me, the 2018 bear market, this is a more personal answer. It's a very sobering reminder that every aspect of life, whether it's work, whether it's friendships, relationships, investing always has an up market and a down market, a bull market and a bear market. And the best thing we can do in a bear market for me personally, it's to keep networking, improving relationships while we have the time, if we have the time, and keep learning. It's this kind of investing in ourselves that will really propel us even higher when the bulls come, which is really critical to the longevity of our success, as well as helping others around us too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this, I was only 6 or 7 when the first .com boom really kicked off. Wait, no, I was 15. I was 15, wait, 2000? Hold on, am I wrong? Is it 1991 or 2000?
99, 2000, I believe.
Okay, sorry. I was like 15 years old, so I was just coming into adolescence. And I remember this kind of explosion of tech and internet around that period. I wasn't investing at the time. I probably should have been. But I guess from my adolescence is that, we're still all of that technology, all of the ideas, and a lot of the people who, started working in that space, 20 years ago, are still here today, and they're still developing, and they went on to build billion-dollar companies. So, I personally think that, this is just a step in the right direction. What that direction is, it's hard to say, just because of the amount of development that needs to happen, both in the technology side, the financial side, and then also the regulatory side to, broaden the way for a lot of these companies to grow and expand. One thing that I am looking forward to is eventually hitting a bottom, which we may be coming to in this quarter or next quarter. I'd like to get your guys' thoughts on where we are in the cycle and what you're planning for over the next few quarters.
I'll start with that. I mean, the fact is nobody knows. This cycle has definitely been accelerated from past cycles from what I've observed and studied. But the matter of fact is no one really knows where we're at. Have we hit the bottom yet? Can't answer that. What I can answer is that we're closer to the bottom than we are to the top. So if that helps anyone, that helps you. But in terms of like investment, it just depends on your strategy, right? Like it depends on like what time frames you're playing on, what your current life situation is, what your financial situation is, and how much you're willing to play risky, and how high of a risk reward you're willing to play for. So I can't really speak on anything beyond that, but I do think that we are getting closer to the end. I wouldn't say that we're anywhere near the end of it, but I would say that we're definitely closer. And if I had to throw a prediction out there, which I don't really like to do, but if I had to, I would say we'll probably have a reversal. And mind you, like a reversal doesn't mean we're just going to go pump automatically, but I think we'll have a reversal in the market probably at like the end of the year.
Yeah. I guess the better question, trying to like find bottoms or call bottoms or make any predictions. I think the better question would be like, how has your investment philosophy changed as we've come closer to the bottom? Are you starting to look at projects again? Do you have a different idea on either existing cryptos that you're looking to put money back into, or is it more just a waiting game at this point?
For me, it's more of a waiting game still. I think that we're too early to tell what projects are even going to survive still. The fact of the matter is, like Serge was talking about, like we don't know what's going on with a lot of these altcoins. A lot of these altcoins are purely speculative investments. And the fact of the matter is, while some of them might have great fundamentals or might be in a good position, technically on the TA charts and things like that, the fact is we don't know how much money these companies have left. We don't know how the development's going of these projects. We don't know how the teams are collaborating together. We don't know a lot of details. So personally, in terms of the alt market, I'm on the sidelines. I'm not really messing with it personally.
Is anybody else on the panel starting to change their investment philosophy and starting to look towards making even any small investments at this point?
In 2017, most of it, I was very active, as I was trading very actively and I was investing very actively, as in the meaning that I put in a lot of time to pick things that I thought would be good. Thing is, I figured out that it isn't really 9 out of 10 times not really worth your time to be very specific about what you want to buy and what you don't want to buy. In the end, it's all built on the assumption that I believe that blockchain, one way or another, as a market in a whole, will go up in value because it fits my personal view of the future, which doesn't align with everybody's view, just to make that sure. So instead, I just buy the entire market. I have about 90% of it in my portfolio, and it does it for me automatically. So it takes me zero time to maintain it. Instead, I focus more on building a business and helping out others instead of actively investing myself.
Right, and this is using your service Index Monkey, correct? Right?
Well, it's closed, so nobody can use it except for me and who I invite. But yeah, I very much thought that in the end, what we all can agree on, at least everybody that's still involved, is we think that it goes up. Most of us aren't sure which specific project it will be. We kind of have a hunch what it might be, and we bet our money on it. But the safest bet we all have is that the market will eventually go up in value. You just don't know when and how much it will be, but you anticipate it to be maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10. And instead of picking one moment to invest, which most people do, funnily enough, is that you spread it out over a couple of years. So if you have $10,000 that you want to invest, put in 1,000 each quarter instead of all in one moment and risk it all that you time it correctly. Mm-hmm. That's probably the number one lesson for me for 2017.
All right, so I think that those are pretty good bull cases. Let me lay out a possible bear case. I don't necessarily believe this, but let's have it out there. Here's a bear case. We do this for a year or 2 more years. The next halving comes and goes. There is no price spike that the market's widely anticipating. There might be something. There probably will be something, but it doesn't hold up. We keep on doing this slow bleed while computing resources get better and better, and over time, the amount of physical machines that can mine Bitcoin is a smaller and smaller fraction of the amount of capacity that's been mothballed. And then at some point, several years away from here and maybe another 50% down from here, we get a successful 51 attack, at which point that's it. Everything's over and everything dies. I wouldn't give this a high percentage chance of happening. I don't think that's very likely at all. I think that's something that you need to keep in mind, definitely, as you are making bets. And the same applies to roughly 90% of alts. I don't think there's anybody who is serious about investing in 2019 who doesn't understand that 90% of alts are going to zero. So the question is, it's not what you're making bets on. It's do you need this money to live on? Do you need to do something to survive this winter? And are you okay with it never recovering? If the answer is yes, then speculatively, then this is a speculative bet that you probably should be making. If you might have issues with this over a 5 to 10 year window, then I would re-examine what you're doing.
Yeah, I would definitely never recommend that you do investing in an amount that you're not comfortable losing with. Definitely wouldn't recommend doing that ever. May it be.
People say that, right? People make that statement all the time. And then you ask them how much money they had in the market in 2017, and nobody is under like 90-something%.
Yeah, I do believe it. And I also think what you mentioned about the computer powering might be increasing, which could lower the total value of the market since it's cheaper to get it, basically. Once again, I think it's best that everybody makes their own decision, not about if it will go up in value, but really think about what you think the future holds, whatever it may be, and how likely it is to happen, and bet on that instead of the assumption that you think it's going to be worth more because it was worth less last year. I think that's something most people missed in investing when they were in cryptocurrencies in 2017, at least for the majority in my direct social circles, sadly.
Something to also consider is how much volume does a coin or token have? You know, if it has no volume, then don't buy it, obviously. But I'm not giving financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research. And I think that goes for the rest of us as well. And the question then is, what asset do you look to? What's the minimum amount of volume for you personally when you look to buy a coin with what we consider high volume? I think that's a very, very subjective question. We all have probably different answers for it.
Is the volume real? That's another important question here.
Right, exactly. And, you know, I think we all have different answers. My answer probably, it depends on first, what exchanges is this altcoin on? Is it possible for maybe a bigger market that has a bigger berth of buyers? Like, for example, I would not buy a coin if it's not on an exchange that the US cannot access, personally for me, because I know that there's a huge market here in the United States. And if the US cannot invest in this asset, it really needs, it's important for an adoption, or at least for a, I guess from the standpoint of being considered and in a way legitimate. But again, it's hard for Americans to be on a lot of exchanges or any exchanges because of different, municipality laws, whatever it may be. I guess my answer would be $1 million in volume. That's my personal answer.
So you're saying that the coin or token would need to be able to have the ability to liquidate $1 million within one day?
No, I'm saying if I buy $1,000 worth of something, I know that I want to be able, I'm able to sell it very easily.
Mm.
If one day I buy a coin, if I buy something $1,000 worth, and then the volume drops to $500 a day, I'm not able to sell. I'm stuck holding a bag of nothing. So
yeah, that's happened to several of the alts that I've held. So it's not a good feeling when you have a sizable investment, but you're not actually able to liquidate it.
Oh yeah, I remember a fund that one of those crypto funds that had to explain to their investors that they couldn't exit a position because there's not enough volume to get out.
Yeah,
that was pretty funny to watch. Yeah.
So do you think we're getting towards the end of the hangover of that? A lot of the money that came in towards the end of last year has finally decided to get out, and a lot of people that jumped on board as either advisors or starting crypto funds last year have gotten out at this point.
I'd say short term, yes, with the Chinese New Year, February 5th. How long that'll last, I think it lasts like 3 or 4 weeks. I remember January 2018 with the Chinese New Year, a lot of money exited the market, and that was very, very pulverizing for quite a bit of time. I think about a month and a half, maybe even 2 months. So the best thing for me in terms of the investment strategy is just to sit on the sidelines and wait for the money to exit, and then invest in the project at 90%, 80%, and see where it goes from there. A very small amount, a negligible amount I'm happy to lose. Could be a quick flip.
I mean, so I guess the exuberance of 2017 has kind of been eroded into where we are now. I know that the general consensus is that most people are just building whatever they had designed to, or whatever they had advertised last year when they were raising capital. When we talk about finishing this bear market, I mean, as a trader myself, the thing that I'm looking for, and the thing that I'm really watching for is, we probably need to go down another 50% from here, at least in my opinion. The amount of volume that needs to get traded at the bottom, the amount of people that need to get washed out. Usually you have these like deep fee bottoms, and we had one back in 2014 as well too, which signaled the bottom at like $160. So we bottomed out at $160 and we went to 320 in 2 weeks. So having some sort of move like that, I think would signal maybe the end of the bottom, or we just continue accumulating for the next few years, or the year or 2 years, however long it's going to be. But again, this is just you can speculate as much as you want, but you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Could be that next week all of a sudden the futures markets get opened and bot comes on, and then the ETFs get approved, and then the sentiment completely changes. So what about the I guess what are you guys excited for in 2019 as the bear market continues?
I'm excited to see what projects still survive through 2019. We've seen, for example, last week, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Haven Protocol, but XHV Haven, the developers had a huge meltdown, and the project like instantly fell apart. And this was a project with a very, very large community, a very large amount of support. No one had any idea that this was going to happen. There weren't any hints about this. And I really believe that we're going to see that a lot more in 2019 as this bear market goes on. So I'm interested to see which companies have been kind of holding on to the last string and which ones have actually created solid fundamentals and solid foundations financially and beyond to survive through the bear market and hopefully create something that's lasting in the space.
So instead of calling bottoms or, thinking about what we need in terms of technical analysis, it's never been my strong suit. I want to see something completely different. I want to see a project succeed and go from 0 to 100,000 or 1 million users, and still be completely undervalued because it's still 80% correlated to Bitcoin. The minute I see that is when I will start buying back in extremely heavily. I think that's your next bottom call. I'm not so worried about TA or whatever decreasing volume, because it's going to keep decreasing over time as interest wanes. I'm not worried what that tells us. I want to see adoption before a price spike up. And that will tell me we're at the bottom and it's time to come back.
Interesting. Have you seen any projects like that so far?
DAI. I think that is a sleeping giant. Obviously, not talking about price here at all, but what we have there is a stable coin that survived a 95% drop. It's got something like $70–80 million worth of adoption. It can't, at the moment, be unpegged. And that's a use case that potentially has a really bright future. It's not digital fiat. It's an actual stable coin backed by digital collateral. That's really interesting. I have no idea if that will translate to the price of Maker, and one of the issues I have with it is it doesn't really scale that well. But those are solvable problems, and I'm very interested to see what comes of that.
I'm very interested to see how the lending space will hold up in 2019 and 2020. Since I think that lending might be one of the use cases that is very accessible already. As Naya said, it's trading and investing is a thing that is very much used for nowadays, which is basically still a transaction of value. But I think that lending all over the world with a collateral that could be Ethereum or Bitcoin is also very interesting, especially from an economical point of view, which gives people that didn't have before credit to spend for whatever they wish to.
Yeah, something like Nexo is definitely very interesting as well.
Yeah, Nexo, Italian, those are pretty good. Even though we have seen ones that are pretty bad, at least in my opinion, like Salt. I think they had a pretty bad ICO scandal going on. And from there on, I haven't heard anything from them. But I'm very interested to see how the lending space will impact the economics.
Yeah, I mean, I look at these things as, we had a bunch of unregulated and unlicensed businesses start in 2017 and 2018, and really towards the end of 2018 was when you saw the first major wave of licensed businesses like Nexo come in. And I think the big story over the next, well, I'd say it probably won't be publicized too much, but I think one of the big things which is going to happen is a lot of these companies which raised are going to have to figure out how they can become licensed or do something even as basic as getting a bank account, because many of them don't, and they're still waiting to work with one of the few providers who are servicing crypto companies, either in Switzerland or in the European Union. So this shift, as we legitimize the space more and you start to see more regulations come in, I think is going to be an interesting dynamic over the next few months or next years even. Berger, what about yourself? What are you, excited for the space in?
I'm looking forward to seeing which companies are still around. We read about Consensus laying off 13% of their employees in early December. Nebulous laid off 60% of its staff, I think like 3 or 4 days ago. That news just came out. I'm eager to see, and I think back to Nebulous, I think they're building a really great product. It just comes down to who will be around in the next 12 months. And that's something I'm really, really excited about to see. I mean, obviously, we all want the companies that we invest in to be around. There's never a guarantee. But you know, who knows? I think that we just need to keep doing our due diligence, keep researching, and really hope for the best for some of our investments. I really believe that.
So were you involved in any, I guess, executive placement or talent placement for crypto companies?
That's a great question. And that's something that actually we're speaking about getting involved in. We're seeing a pretty good demand of companies saying, you know, we need a CTO, we need a CEO, could you help us? And our focus is the restaurant, hospitality, private equity world. So it's not something that we do right now, but there is a good amount of demand despite the bear market. So maybe we'll get into it, maybe we won't. Time will tell. So that's a great question, though. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Did you see a change in the amount of people that were getting hired? I mean, obviously it's not your company's specialty, but you know, you must see the amount of demand that's coming up for certain sectors.
Yeah. So the economy here in the United States is very strong. It's very, very competitive for our clients who we represent to find their executives. There's just a really big, there's just not a lot of, I would say, top candidates right now because they want to stay where they are. But we also work with the candidates we find have no compelling reason to leave their company. Mm-hmm. Especially now, it's January, then February, then March. Bonuses are paid out in February and March. They're not leaving their company unless the company that we want them to join is going to pay their bonus, which is not going to happen. So, you know, I really think that we are at an inflection point, both in the search business, but also in our industry of whatever that may be, crypto, blockchain investing. It's a really interesting time, and time will tell how it plays out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So Michael, have you been keeping up on any companies and how they've shifted their either messaging or shifted their operations during this bear market?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Barry said, like we've seen Consensus change their whole structure in terms of who they're hiring and if they're even hiring. I've seen a couple other companies do the same thing. And in terms of messaging and things like that, I think that I've seen a couple companies arise through the bear market. If you're familiar with like Beaksy Exchange, they've come up in the bear market and they've put a highlight on transparency. And a lot of other companies have done that. Masari Crypto is a company that actually works with other crypto companies to help them become more transparent. And I think that's the interesting thing that is arising out of this whole bear market is the fact that people like are starting to realize the importance of transparency and honesty from these crypto companies and looking at them less as just investments to flip and make quick money off of and more of, wow, this is an actual business that needs to run. And how do we know what's going on to the company if we can't see what's going on behind the scenes? So, I mean, every company that I work with, I specifically highlight, you guys need to formulate some sort of transparency initiative in order to be like communicative with your community. It's extremely, extremely important. I think we're going to see a lot of more companies going towards that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, the transparency aspect for a lot of the ICO companies, which raised, I think it's a very big aspect. You know, there's many companies which just didn't cash out and are now sitting on not enough money to continue operating for the next even 6 months. So with the amount of, I guess, tokens and companies that are going to wash out in the next 6 months, I think transparency is going to be one of the big aspects that you'll see a company start to publish information on. You know, releasing a token is almost, it's not the same, but it's close to having an IPO. And, you know, with an IPO, there's specific reporting requirements, you know, filing your quarterly reports and also doing the public meetings with the board, and then also the executive staff where they can get on and answer questions from investors. I don't see those yet for any crypto companies, but I'm sure they'll be coming soon as people push for greater transparency.
Agreed.
Yeah. Jesse, what sort of so you're dealing with indexes and other different types of financial products. What do you see evolving in that space over the next few quarters?
Well, I'm interested to see, because the top 30, like the top 30 coins right now is about 90% of the market, which is quite high considering how many there are in the complete market if you wanted to measure them all, which is about 1,600 last time I checked. And 30 of them owns about 90% of the entire market value, which is, if you put it on a chart, a pretty long tail to put it on, to name it pretty much. So I really want to see if that ever changes in the future, if that gets distributed more or not. It would be very interesting to see. But I'm most excited about lending, actually, to be honest. Lending is one of them, and credit is one of the most, what do you call it, powers of economics. It's one of the basics, and it's never been introduced in crypto before, at least not at this scale. So I'm really interested to see, and it's pretty easy. I've tried it out myself. It's pretty easy to do, to be honest, compared to your normal loan. I'm very interested to see how that impacts the market, since you can do credit now freely with crypto, and how that impacts how people invest, even if they maybe make it do more stable decisions since it's a loan, hopefully. Yeah, that's basically it for me.
Jesse, you said something at the very beginning about how the people could own their data. And that's something that I'm very passionate about, because I think as we see Sovereign, we see Ontology, the Key, these other companies coming out with ways for the average person to own their data. We could see all these hacks with Facebook and how they use and abuse our data as if we're just numbers being thrown around for them to profit off of us. I think it's very, very good for these companies to find a way to take our collective power back. And that's something that I'm personally very, very interested in, and I'll keep following.
I guess here's a question actually from our YouTube chat, and people that are tuned in, feel free to ask questions. We'll get to them as we can. So do you think that a company should work? So two things. Do you think that a crypto company that has a token or that is supporting a token should work solely to increase the price of the token, or do you think that they should work more on development? Or do you think that the price of the token or coin is a function of the development and the distribution and adoption of the project itself?
I love that question. I think that no one asked it in 2017. There were very, very few people that I saw asking those kinds of questions until the bottom fell out. I'm going to dust off my old law degree and point out that a company has a duty to its shareholders. The catch, of course, is that tokens aren't shares, and they don't represent equity until the SEC says they sort of might, and that'll be fun in 2021 to answer that question. But the bottom line is, token price and whether a company is healthy have nothing to do with each other, and in fact, often it's a negative number because you've got market makers involved who have to be paid. So the thing I think you're going to see a lot of is tokens going on one last ride up on their way back down to zero as companies try their best to cash out with varying degrees of fraud along the way. And you're going to also see a lot of companies that are getting widespread adoption. Maybe a lot might be pushing it, but definitely more than zero companies getting some adoption, but with no hit to the token price at all. And unfortunately, I don't know how many companies don't have good token models at all, but probably most. So you will see that diverge. Whether that ever reverses, I think, is a function of how healthy the industry eventually becomes.
All right, so we're going to wrap it up, guys. We'll just go around one more time. You guys can give some last thoughts on the bear market, and then we'll wrap it up. Jesse, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I hope that the price speculation ends right now in this year after the huge bear market filtering out most of that, and finally happen more towards a decentralized future and how that fits your personal view instead of just the price.
I would say keep learning, keep networking, keep building strong relationships, and most importantly, spend time with family and friends.
I agree with
what
that.
the market
Love
is.
that. Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the bear market's an opportunity to be building something, like exactly like Barry said. Whether you're learning, whether you're already somewhat educated in the space, you can start to build something that'll add value to other people. And education is key. Education is how we're going to move this thing forward.
For what it's worth, I agree. I think this is a prime opportunity to build something. A lot of people got handed a lot of money to go build it, and this particular time is the moment in time where maybe there have been the fewest expectations for everybody to make a profit. You've got a runway where no one really expects anything of you. So if you want to go out and try and get your mass adoption, this is the time.
Yeah, I'm gonna touch back on what Barry said, and said that you know, the prices can go up or down, but yeah, at the end of the day, it's really the people you surround yourself with, both your friends, your family, and whom you're working with. So if you're always working to increase the amount of great people that you live and work and surround yourself with, you know, a bear market can't do that much to you. All right, guys, thank you for turning into the this first panel. It was really good. I appreciate it. I think we've come to the end of our session. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back with the next panel on the future of ICO investing. Thank you very much, everyone.